Hello everyone. Well, before we get started, I just thought I'd show you around because it's a beautiful day. You know, God only makes beautiful days, and it's really up to us, you know, what we do with them, I guess. So I'm just going to sit you guys down here, over here on this big rock. Okay, this big rock here. This is actually where I'm at right now. It's my favorite spot to do breath work. Each morning when I start my day, and it's one of the more beautiful spots here at home. So I'm just going to put you down and we'll have a chat. Let's put you down there. There we go. Alright, so for those who don't know, you know, it wasn't too long ago that I was diagnosed with a very high stage 4 follicular lymphoma. It's a type of blood cancer. Now that in itself is usually, you know, cause for harm, to say the least. But along with that, I was also diagnosed with stage 3 kidney disease. I had fatty liver disease. The cancer was in my spleen. It was in my bones. It was everywhere. You know, very high stage 4, but I also had a very large tumor that was wrapped around my aorta. It was about the size of a football. Yeah, this is just one part of my story, I guess. At the time, I was living in Japan, and I was diagnosed in Australia when I came to visit family. And that meant that I lost everything that I had built in Japan. I lost my home, my business, everything. My wife and I, we moved back to Australia for my treatment. We were homeless. And, you know, like I was going through treatment, trying to find a home and everything like that. I did 2 years of treatment. You know, initially it started out as 6 months of treatment. That turned into 2 years. And then at the end of that 2 years, even though I was still going through treatments, they diagnosed me again for the second time at very high stage 4. So twice in 2 years I was stage 4 follicular lymphoma. And that led to a clinical trial that gave me a lot of problems, including extensive blood clots throughout my arms. I had an implant in my heart, and all sorts of problems went on with that. That's a longer story though. And then I had a transplant, a stem cell transplant that left me paralyzed and pretty much with dementia for years later. I was stuck in bed and I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe properly, and so on. If you have a look at some of my longer interviews, you can see my full story. Well, some of it anyway, as much as you can fit into a small interview, really. But, you know, what I want to talk to you today about is things that I wish I knew at the time. Things that I wish I'd known when I was diagnosed. And of course, you know, like hindsight's always 20/20, and, you know, things, I mean, you don't know what you don't know at the time you don't know it, you know. So, and I believe that, you know, God's timing is always perfect. You know, there are situations that He gives us that brings us awareness and so on. And I really don't regret my story, what the pain that I went through. It was just what I had to go through, I guess, and I did go through it, and I'm at the other side. It's an incredible transformation to go from where I was to where I am now. Now, I always believed beforehand, before I was diagnosed, I always believed that if you were active and had a fit lifestyle and so on, that nothing was going to get you, you know. I was lean and I was fit, so I thought I was healthy. And that seems to be I think, like, if you have a look around in videos and things like that on YouTube today, there seems to be, I think, the mindset of most people. They seem to think that weight is the only marker or the only biomarker of health, and it's not. And very, very far from it, because I was very fit when I was diagnosed. Now, I was diagnosed in January of 2012. It was actually just 10 months after we survived a 9.1 magnitude earthquake and tsunami in Japan. But that's another story as well. But this is the thing, like, I believe the same thing. I believe that health, or like, basically resulted in, eating less calories than you burn, and low-fat diets, and so on and so on. The fitness industry, all right? I mean, I am a strength and conditioning coach. That was my trade. And, of course, I believe that. I never put much stock into things like, grounding and sunlight, and I never even thought about that sort of thing. It was all about keeping the calories low fat, and heart smart, and being active, and I was always very, very active. Like I said, I was very lean and I was very fit, and I was like that the whole time that I was diagnosed. So before I was diagnosed, for years. So it was a real shock to me that even when I thought that I was doing everything right, that I was, in fact, just what they said, weeks away from dying from either the cancer or the kidney disease or the liver disease. So, or just the sheer size of the tumor, because it was choking my aorta, it was crushing my other organs, especially my kidneys. It killed my left kidney completely, so I've just got one kidney left. So yeah, it was a complete shock to me. So there's a lot of things I've learned since then, obviously, and it would take a lot more than one video to talk about the things that I wish I had known when I was diagnosed. But I think, like, the key things that I would have liked to have known, and at the time when I was diagnosed, was one, is that when they tell you, like, because this is the thing, doctors will tell you, or they told me, that it's not my fault, there's nothing that you can do about it. The only thing you can do about it is listen to what they say and do all their treatments, and that is your singular hope of any chance of a remission. Because for follicular lymphoma, it is a recurring type of cancer that has no cure, and if you do have a remission period, eventually it will come back no matter what you do. And when it comes back more aggressive. So the prognosis is very negative when they first diagnose you. They simply tell you that it's going to come back no matter what, and it will only get more aggressive. And so basically, where you are at now is as good as it's going to get. It's only going to get worse from here, and you just need more treatments for the rest of your life, even though your life will be very short. So it's a very negative sort of prognosis, But the point is, they don't know what causes it. They don't know how to cure it. And according to them, there is no cure. But today, I'm standing before you here in this beautiful spot. No evidence of disease, So it's incredible. And it's not because of the 3 solid years of chemotherapy. It's because of what I did after that to recover from the chemotherapy. So I've spent the last 10 years, I'm now 10 years in remission, and it has been, it's been a very slow progression, because I've been trying many different things and learning as I go along, as we all do. I think for most people, we all want to know that we are doing the right thing. And unfortunately, the way things are at the moment, the way information is, education and everything like that, and what doctors tell you, they are the experts, so you think that what they tell you is gospel, but you want to believe what they tell you is the right thing, and when you find these different things, you also want to think that, okay, you also want to know that you are doing the right thing towards your health. And it's really just a matter of trial and error for most of us. So when someone gives you dietary advice, and you think, well, does that sound right? Or and you try it, and you think, is this work? You don't know if it's working or not. And it's very hard to tell unless you do regular tests. And for me, I do regular tests. I have to monitor my bloods, and I have to do scans every year, and so on. I still do bloods every 3 months, and I do like glucose levels and things like that every day. But for the average people, you don't need to do that unless you have symptoms of a disease or condition or something, some sort of problem, which is why I do it. But I wish I'd known that back then. I wish I'd known that they didn't have all the answers. They don't really know how to bring you back to a healthy state. The doctors, or the so-called experts, they are experts. They are experts on finding a disease and prescribing drugs to hit that disease. But there are problems with that sort of thing. It's a symptom. They treat the symptoms, and they don't really, because they don't know the causes, then they really can't get you back to a healthy state, So, there's a lot of things that I took for granted. I took for granted that what they knew, or what they told me, was that that was it. That this is as good as it gets, and it doesn't get any better. So it only gets worse from here. But like after the transplant, and I couldn't move, and I was stuck in bed, staring up at the ceiling, and I couldn't think, I couldn't speak, I couldn't move anywhere. It was so many things that I wish I'd known before it got to that level, got to that stage, like after the first diagnosis, perhaps, or before I was diagnosed. If I'd known these things, I wouldn't have had a problem. For example, staying on a low-fat diet. These things are, except for certain circumstances, like for the last 5 years or so, I think a lot of people would have seen a lot. But generally speaking, these are accumulative things. This disease didn't happen overnight, and it took decades of low-fat diets, vegetarian for a while, and so on and so on, but also environmental stuff, insulating myself, indoor work, and lots of screens, and so on and so on. Just lifestyle things. Small lifestyle things actually have large impacts. And that's something I talk about in the 8 science-backed habits that saved my life, the video, which I'll put up on the screen here. Because I truly believe those 8 habits really have changed my entire life. They've put me into remission. And not only have I stayed in remission and gotten healthy and gotten back to the gym and everything like that, but it's helped me to recover and speed up my recovery from the 3 years of chemotherapy and the damage that the chemotherapy did to me. Because it totally cooked my organs. I had AFib. I had dementia. I had all kinds of problems. My kidneys were failing. My liver was failing. Everything was cooked. To me, so it's kind of actually exciting, like now that I can still get out there and do things, and really appreciate what is around me now. It's really hard to have faith in your abilities. I did lose a lot of faith throughout this process as well, in myself. Not so much faith, but confidence. I lost a lot of confidence in my abilities to coach because I was in such a bad situation. But after coming out of that, it also gives you more faith, I think, more awareness of it. And I wish I had known things like this before. I wish I had known about light, how light affects us, being outside, how the sunlight helps us to really stimulate the body through the skin, stimulates the liver to produce D3 hormone, for example, which is a pre-hormone for testosterone, and it also stimulates the release of nitric oxide. And how simple things like just being outside can have such a health. We are solar powered, for one, and I talk about this stuff a lot on other videos, but I wish I'd known this beforehand and how great it was. Even though I did spend time outside before, I was still kind of insulated from it, I love the things that I do now, like grounding, and I even have I even have things like grounding sheet on my bed. Wonderful for my sleep as well. I have other things that help me sleep, which I do talk about in my 8 habits video, but the grounding sheet, I think, the grounding sheet gives me a deeper sleep than I've ever had before. It's a fantastic thing. So I'm grounded most of the day, pretty much all day. I wish I'd known just how much nutrition advice and education is just complete and utter nonsense, and not just nonsense, just corrupt and ridiculous stuff. It really is. Just some of it, I just think it's just pure evil. I always thought, there are good carbs and there are bad carbs and all this, but I wish I'd known the proper biochemistry about this stuff. But even now, the education on this stuff is just completely off. And I wish I had known just how effective, or how much just being aware of the way we breathe can change the way we think, feel, and act, and how it can affect our health as well. Just normal, steady state breathing. Most people breathe far too much, and we're always told that CO2 is killing the planet and all this sort of stuff, but just how important that is to our respiratory system is incredible as well, which I do talk about in other videos, so I'm not going to go too in depth of for everything today, because it's too much for one short video. CO2 is so vitally important for us, but also for the trees around us as well. they feed us oxygen and we feed them CO2. But CO2 is much more than that. It's more than just a waste gas as well. In our system, it's a vasodilator. Okay, so it helps us to relax. It helps us to relax our muscles. It helps us to expand our blood vessels and so many other things. It's also a signaling molecule. Without CO2 in our system, we can't deliver the oxygen to our cells. It picks up it connects the oxygen to the blood vessels, the hemoglobin, and delivers it to the cell that needs it, and so on. So everything is synergistic, and I wish I'd known that a lot earlier. I wish I'd known that years ago. There's so many. Honestly, there is so many things that I've picked up along the way that I wish I'd known back then. And I've tried, all these different things along the way as well. After the transplant, I really could not eat anything except meat, because it really I was so sensitive. My mouth was so sensitive to everything else that it would burn my mouth. So at first, it was just meat, and afterwards I started introducing all these different things because I was trying to find ways to try and build my immune system back up, especially after it collapsed, after they reintroduced some vaccines. But you have all these different videos out there, all these different people telling you, oh, these fruits and these vegetables and these spices and these herbs, they all, cure cancer, and honey and all this other stuff that cures cancer. And it's just complete and utter nonsense. One, they don't know. They just don't know at all. And they're just trying to get clicks, and I understand that, but it's and I've tested these things, I've tested all these things against bloods, because I tried them all, and nothing has been as effective as the things that I do. That the carnivore diet, a high fat, meaty diet, and breathwork are the two most important things to me, because it comes down to the substrate that you eat and the air that then the way that you breathe as to how the biochemistry sort of works in your body, and then there's grounding and sunlight and sleep and all these other things. I wish I'd known a long time ago, long before I was even diagnosed. I was never a very good sleeper, and that was mostly because I was never a very good breather. I never thought about the way I breathed, or and so on and so on. Very important things that we just take for granted as well. As long as I'm active and I burn more calories than I eat, then why not just eat ice cream? I would if I could. But it's just not that simple. But having said that, it really is the simplest thing. Just eat meat and do proper breathing. We shouldn't be breathing more than 5 or 6 breaths per minute at rest, right? You shouldn't even hear yourself breathe. I think as Lao Tzu said, the perfect human breathes as though they are not breathing at all. So you should not be able to hear yourself breathe. And I never put much thought into that. It was, for me, it was like, especially when I was active and going, doing all these sports, it was like, well, just get the air in, and of course it's a natural thing. We don't even have to think about breath, do we? But it makes a very big difference. Actually, if you read my Substack, I have some great information about that as well, which I will be making videos about, and I will show you how to breathe properly as well soon. and cold. Like I never liked the cold much. It's amazing some of the benefits. And even recently, there was a study talking about the cold effects on cancer, and apparently the cold, just being in a cold room, will actually mobilize brown fat. That brown fat actually takes up glucose faster than cancer stem cells can. So that would effectively starve the cancer cells, because the brown fat is actually taking away the source of glucose. So it's really interesting stuff to me, and I think anyone in my situation would be interested in that. When I was like after the earthquake, for example, we had no power. It was winter, it was snowing outside and so on, and we didn't even have water on at first, but when the water did come back on, we had no gas for heating, so we just had to have cold showers, and I hated it. It was so cold. Little did I know, it was actually really good for me. There's a lot of good reasons for cold treatments and things like that, ice baths and things like that, which I do now, and I enjoy it, because once you get used to it, you feel great after it. Even if you just have a cold shower in the morning, it feels fantastic, and actually does improve your circulation, and you actually feel warmer throughout the rest of the day, even though it's now winter here in Australia. This is winter, okay, where I am in the part of the world. It's a lovely day, isn't it? It really is. It's fantastic. So these are just some of the things that I wish I'd known beforehand, before I was diagnosed, or even when I was diagnosed. It would have helped. If I had gone straight for a high-fat carnivore diet, grounding, ice baths and breath work, fasting, sunlight, and quite a few other things, of course. I wish I'd known all that stuff beforehand, but I don't really regret that time through my treatment. It was horrible. I have spent a lot of years trying to recover, not only like physical health, but like cognitive health and so on. But I can't really regret what I didn't know at the time. Sure, I wish I'd known all this stuff before I even got sick, but it's all God's timing, I guess. And that is something that I've learned to come to respect as well, is that it does come to you in time, and I think it does present itself. The information does come to you at the right time. And I'm really grateful that, even though I've been through all this stuff, that I'm still here, and I'm here now, and it's a natural carnivore. I never thought, when I was going through all this stuff, when I was first diagnosed, I thought, and for years, for the first 5 years at least, I thought that was as good as it gets. That was going to be my life. There was nothing I could do about it. There was really no point trying to be healthy again, because it didn't matter what I did. It was always going to come back. So I spent all those years just living from test to test. And at first, like, each blood test was like just a week apart, and you not knowing whether it's going to be back or not. So you can't make any sort of life plans for that. When you have this diagnosis, it's very difficult to plan a future when they keep telling you that you don't have a future. This is it, But now, it's wow. It's like they never expected me to last, and I believed them as well. I didn't think there was going to be any kind of future. So it's like, well, we can't do normal things. We can't plan a holiday. We can't get a phone contract. We can't do anything. We can't get a lease, rent a house for more than 6 months, And I understand that when people are diagnosed like this, and they try and search for answers, they're trying to look for reasons why, and they're trying to look for ways out. And it's very difficult when you've got all these different people telling you, do this, do that, and do this, and try this, or this person did this, and this person did that, sort of thing. And we, like I said before, we all want to know that we are moving in the right direction. We are doing the right thing for our health and for our life and so on. And it's very difficult. A lot of it is just trial and error. But I think that the body is so resilient, though, that there is leeway there. Because I've gone through so much that, it really is incredible. Just how far I've come back, and if you know my whole story, you would think the same. So I know there are people that are going to be very hesitant when I talk about the carnivore diet, for example, like eating a lot of meat and fat and eggs and seafood and dairy, milk and so on, cheese and yogurt and that sort of stuff. But nutrient-wise, we have a lot more variety on carnivore diet than we do from other sources. But just as important, I really believe that just as important is breathwork. Okay, the way we breathe, because when we break it down, the substrate, it is food and oxygen that gives us the ATP, easy water and CO2 and so on. We produce hormones and so on and so on. And certain types of breath work help us to stimulate our body to produce more blood cells, which is vitally important, especially post chemotherapy. If you have a look at the video, like 11 reasons, I'll put it up here, 11 reasons why people are tired years after the chemotherapy. It's because chemotherapy damages your body's ability to produce blood cells from the bone marrow. But breath work can help that, and so can the carnivore diet through testosterone. If you produce more testosterone, you produce more blood cells from the bone marrow through the same pathway as low oxygen tension breath work does. So breath holds. Both of these effectively stimulate the production of HIS, which are hypoxia-inducible factors. Okay, these are proteins that stimulate the kidneys to produce EPO, and EPO stimulates the bone marrow to produce more blood cells. These are synergistic reasons for us to do both carnivore diet and breath work. Okay. I just wish I had known all this stuff a long time ago, of course. But I'm going on a bit of a rant here, and I'm, sorry about that. I do like talking about this stuff, because to me it's very interesting, and I love seeing the way the body reacts, in biochemistry and things like that. So I'm going to try and wind this up a bit, because it's getting, the video is getting quite long. But these are the things. I wish I knew these things a lot sooner. I wish I didn't have to try, and I wish I didn't have all those years of trial and error and all those years of believing that there's nothing I could do about it, because there really is a lot that we can do. And it's not these are not big lifestyle changes either. These are just small lifestyle habits that really have a very big impact on the way we live and how healthy we are. Getting the right sleep. There are small things that we can do, before sleeping, and things that we can get, like this, the grounding sheet, things like that. Grounding, just, you don't have to do it all day. Getting sunlight, eating the right food, breath work, breathing, and it's not really a lot of breath exercise that you need to do. Even just being breath aware and breathing properly throughout the day makes a very big difference to our life. So, just for example, a normal at-rest breathing habit that we should all be doing is about 5 to 6 breaths per minute. So 5 seconds in through the nose and 5 seconds out through the nose. That's a normal breathing habit. That's our normal breathing state. And these small little changes that in our lifestyle can make all the difference in our life, in the way we live. And I am living proof. Okay, they told me I would never be rid of this disease. They told me that I had months to live, and that was back in 2012. Okay, it's now 13 years. Even though I did 3 years of chemotherapy that left me in bed, paralyzed, dementia, all kinds of other problems. I had all kinds of other organ damage done, and clots and all sorts of things. They didn't expect me to survive much longer after the transplant either. And I had stopped breathing a number of times throughout the transplant. But here I am now, and I have no evidence of disease. I go to the gym, I'm fit again, and I'm 52, and I'm actually healthier and fitter than most other 52-year-olds as well. So these small lifestyle habits can make a very, very big difference. Alright guys, I will post some more videos for you very soon. I'm sorry it's been so long in between videos. I am changing the way I do things on this channel, and I will be updating you more. And I also want to try and bring you some more videos on how to breathe and some of the breath work and more exercise videos for you. And these are things that I think are just as important as a lot of the things that we've been talking about ever since I started the channel. Okay. Alright guys, so stay tuned. I hope you are all well and having a great day wherever you are and wherever you might be in the world. And I hope you make it a day that means something, whether it be to you or those around you. And we'll talk soon. Take care.